It's rare I have so much positive and negative to say about something, but that does make Cultic an interesting game to talk about. Cultic is a retro first-person shooter developed by Jason Smith and published by 3D Realms, the first 10 levels of which are now available. The game starts with you waking up from a grave after being left there for dead by a dangerous cult, ready to take revenge. The visuals of this game stand out even among the retro shooter space. The game has a limited color palette that looks like rust in an abandoned building. The textures have plenty of detail. The walls that are falling apart, the dirty floors really sell the feeling of the space having deteriorated and left to the weathers. Most of the lighting is also really well done. The dithering and post-processing effect does not get in the way of the visual clarity that the game has. The visuals really add up in creating a pretty distinct atmosphere and environments, fitting in perfectly with the tone of a journey of revenge against cultists who are tempting forces they should not. The horror influence is also really well done. In terms of the visuals, the bodies lying about, going through the decrepit caves, deep underground crypts, and the abandoned mines. Though the darker parts of the game, darker as in the lighting, if you don't use your lighter, looks like a poorly compressed video where the enemies seem to float on nothing. The limited color palette really hurts the look here. Also the arms are fucked, like dude, does he have broken bones in there? The two-handed weapons look like they are being held by an alien in human skin. I do think the performance is fairly low for a game of its type. I had drops below 30 frames pretty consistently, but my PC is not up to date by any stretch of the imagination, so I will hold off on criticizing it too much, but some optimizations would be nice to see. The devs have already fixed the crashes I and some other players have been facing, so the feedback is being taken seriously. I have less positive things to say about the sound design of the game though. The best thing about it is definitely the weapon sounds. The loud and impactful noises of the weapons, the boom of the shotgun, the 3-round bursts of the pistol, the powerful shot of the lever action. If I had one criticism in this department, it would be that I would have loved the dynamite noises to be louder, an earth-shattering boom if you will. But yeah, in general, the sound design makes the weapon feel nice and satisfying to use. The enemies though could also use some tweaking. The cultists are basically just groaning and moaning with no other audio or sound. They get boring to listen to. Even their burning noises aren't that notable. They also make no noise before shooting. They just shoot. There's a distinct lack of personality in these enemies, which are the most numerous in the game. Enemies like the ghosts make no noise at all, which makes them an annoying and tedious enemy to deal with in most situations. The harvester is an enemy that does it well, however. It revs its chainsaw to show that it's here to fuck you up. The skeleton and the clacking bones are probably my favorite sounding enemies, but most of the other enemies don't have a single memorable sound. The soundtrack on the other hand is really good. There's some nice variety, the more tense tracks and the combat tracks complement each other nicely. And there are some tracks good enough that I would listen to them on their own and think of the fights. Though sometimes the tracks can be a bit overpowering over the environments and can make it hard to find the last remaining enemy in a fight. The game takes a slower pace compared to a lot of these shooters. Your movements feel weightier and you can't zoom across the massive maps. Your progress is slow and steady. It's not spray and pray, you have to make your bullets count and aim straight and make these heads pop with a wet crack. This game has some of the most insanely satisfying headshots I have seen. The head is broken open as it sprays blood high and the body drops. And the fact that the game slows down for a second during some of these headshots to let you fully savor this gory carnage is just perfect. It's hard to say how much I love the gore without sounding like a psychopath, but man, I will never tire of seeing this brain splatter into thick soup. The game with its weapon does a good job of incentivizing these headshots as well, with its powerful lever action rifle that kills the standard suite of cultists in one shot no matter the distance. Shooting anywhere but the head is just wasting bullets. This holds true for most enemies and most weapons. Aim high, keep note of your environments, and even though the movement is weighty, doesn't mean you can jump above the guys with shields and shotgun blast them. Moving and jumping around is pretty essential in taking care of groups of enemies. Also essential is taking note of lanterns and barrels that can decimate the cultists. The lanterns especially are really useful in your journey of decimating the entire population of this religious sect. This game oozes enough blood to make a medieval headsman nauseous, and I don't just mean the copious amounts of gore. The 1998 game Blood was a heavy inspiration for this one, or I can say this game feels like it has Blood's blood. If I have to compare the flow of the combat to Blood, it's basically in that game you clear areas room by room, chucking dynamite around corners cause the cultists will hit scan you and kill you in seconds after spotting you. Whereas in Cultic, you take your lever action or FG42 and then snipe all the enemies you can see even a single pixel of. Another thing I thought about in this game is that while every weapon is great, some feel a bit redundant. Like the sniper rifle FG42, we already have a long range weapon in the lever action, why not just add a scope to it using the skill tree? You already have a pistol with a high rate of fire burst. Why have the Sten then, and not create a better pistol using the upgrade tree? The one thing that surprised me was that all the weapons in the game so far are grounded in reality. As far as I know, all these weapons actually existed. I like how they contextualize some of these creatures in the plot. Talk about how the cult took over these places, or even the cult struggling to control their own beasts. Definitely the most surprising part of the game for me, though I do wish the character you play as had some actual character as well. But if I want to speak about my primary issue with this game, I will have to go into the spoilers. E1M6, a level I consider to be one of the worst in any boomer shooter I have played. This level has enemies spawning in a few waves until a tank appears as the boss. So what's wrong with this? It's a sudden, abrupt and poorly done difficulty spike. The problem comes with the removal of checkpoints or saves at any moment in this whole part, meaning in this section, which is already a massive difficulty spike, you have to go through the whole fight again and again, all 7-8 minutes of it. Before that you could quick save anytime and there were frequent checkpoints. The game is at its best when you can plan with the enemies in front of you, picking and choosing from a distance what to do. The one major problem with enemies rushing you from all directions is that in this game, the enemy audio alerts straight up suck. The growling of the cultists is inaudible in the thumping music that plays in this section, and no, muting the music isn't a solution. Ghosts also spawn, which I have already complained about. So you have to jump around looking at every direction like you are a multiplayer COD tryhard. Any semblance of playing methodically is gone. It's going from basically no deaths on hard to a bunch of deaths in a poorly balanced stream of respawning enemies. You cannot lower the difficulty either. The tank itself is a pushover, as the devs themselves mentioned in the Steam thread I made about this level, and I think it's just plain bad and uninteresting as a boss if it needs to keep spawning enemies behind you to maintain any semblance of tension in the whole thing. It's a long, tedious repeat till you get to the shitty tank fight, and if you die in that phase, have fun doing it all over again. The dev has said that it's meant to be a difficulty spike, and it's one of the most poorly done ones I have seen, and no other parts of the game reach this difficulty level, and I hope this was the worst Cultic had to offer. The final boss at Cultic feels similar to the tank, a pushover where the game needs to spawn enemies to make sure you face even a minute challenge, cause the boss itself couldn't be made challenging or engaging. So yeah, overall Cultic can be great. I hope there are more enemies and weapons introduced in the later episodes of the game and some better boss fights, but the base of the game itself is strong. The combat and the movement feels really good. The problems I have definitely don't ruin this experience. As it stands, the experience feels pretty satisfying overall as well for the price I paid for it and the quality and length of the content I got for that price.